Hostage, a Todd Mills mystery, book 3 in the series. Arthur R.D. Zimmerman, publisher, Scribble Pub. Narrator, Eric Ost. Chapter 15. It was the perfect spot to hide someone like Johnny Clareton. A room behind a room within a space beneath the surface, and below endless piles of crap. Entering these windowless chambers, 2 small rooms with tall ceilings and an adjoining bathroom with a big sink and toilet, Matthew locked the door behind them. Who in their right mind would ever think of looking here? It was both the least and the most obvious place for them to hide, and over the past week, they'd gone undetected as they stocked it with food, sleeping bags, almost an entire apothecary worth of drugs, a small television, and of course, all the video equipment they would need. "Shit," mumbled Matthew, staring at the key in his hand. He couldn't remember if he just locked the door, so he did so again, twisting it tight. When he turned back around, his head spun. "Grab on," he told himself. "Grab onto the door frame. Take a deep breath. You can't fucking lose it. Not now, you moron." Wishing to God he was still on the suppressant therapy for cryptococcal meningitis, he closed his eyes and stood still. "Oh, isn't it lovely?" exclaimed Elliot, looking around as if he'd never been there before. "I've always wanted to live in a sterile, anonymous environment. Don't you just love white on white on white on white?" Tina immediately started digging in the laundry cart in which they had reburied the congressman for his trip from the van into the building. Pulling him up, he again emerged, red-faced and sweaty. Using the tip of one of her fingernails, she picked at the corner of a second piece of tape that Elliot had plastered over Clareton's mouth, then pulled. This time, Johnny Clareton cried out. "Come on, let's get him out of this thing," said Tina, referring to the laundry cart as she blotted her own forehead. Noting the beads of sweat on her brow, Matthew demanded, "You all right?" "No, not really. I'm exhausted and my stomach feels like it's about to fall out." "Just hang in there, babe." But she did look like shit, he thought. So thin, so pale. What the hell? They were all horribly run down, and this had been the most major day any of them had experienced in some time, if not ever. Usually their days were an endless parade, from bed to doctor's office to lab, then back to bed. And Matthew could now see that Tina's adrenaline was going to last only so long, that the excitement was only going to take her so far. Without a doubt, they had to secure Clareton before he realized how weak all of them actually were. "Come on," ordered Matthew. "Let's get him locked up." Elliot nodded. Right. With his hands still bound behind his back, Clareton pleaded, "What are you going to do? Where are you?" "In there," snapped Matthew, waving his gun through the doorway. They led him into the adjoining room, an empty storage space not larger than 10 by 8 feet. The walls blank, a couple of large pipes in the corner. Elliot dashed to the side where he opened a canvas bag and pulled out a set of shiny handcuffs, the metal things, dangling from his left hand. He spun around and bashed right into Tina, nearly knocking her off her feet. "Oh, sorry, doll. Didn't see you." He looked at the cuffs, glanced at Clareton, then looked around the room. "Golly, I think I'm losing my mind. How were we going to do this?" "The pipe," said Tina. "Right, the pipe." Elliot dashed to the corner, attached half of the device to the pipe, then just stood there. "Now what?" "His wrist." "Right, his wrist." Matthew and Tina pushed Clareton toward the corner, and then Elliot pushed up Clareton's left sleeve and locked the cuffs. "Guess you aren't going anywhere for a while, huh, Johnny boy?" But Clareton shuddered and looked away. "You know, I really could help you if you let me go." "Don't worry, we're going to let you go. That's part of our plan," said Matthew. "But until we do, let me make a couple of things clear. First of all, we're in a place where no one can hear you, so don't even bother trying anything. If you make any noise, shout out, or anything, we're going to put the tape right back over your mouth. Got it?" "Yes, but..." "Second, we're going to cut the flex cuffs off your wrist. That will leave just the metal handcuffs on your left wrist. But again, any trouble and we'll strap the flex cuffs back on both hands. And around your ankles too. Got it?" "Yes." But don't you see that I... Matthew snapped. Do you understand or don't you, asshole? Clarendon hesitated, then nodded. Here's a sleeping bag, said Tina, pulling one out of the duffel. You can sit on this or whatever. And here's a coffee can, offered Elliot, pulling out a large red can. You gotta go potty. Use this. Sorry, it's the best we can do. Elliot, where are the clippers? Oh, right. Elliot dashed out of the room, returning seconds later with a pair of garden snippers. Matthew gave him the signal, and Elliot pushed Clarendon around and cut the plastic binding his hands. Remember, asshole, don't make any trouble. Matthew turned to Tina. What do you think? Time to do the... Clasping one hand over her abdomen, Tina spun around and darted out of the room. She raced through the next and into the large restroom, slamming the door behind her. Oh dear, muttered Elliot. Of course, Matthew knew what was up. Like Tina, he'd been plagued with wasting syndrome and had had trouble with almost every kind of food. All three of them were living on almost nothing but graham crackers, bananas, mashed potatoes, and Coke. He just prayed, that was all, that there was nothing more serious. Turning back to Clarendon, Matthew waved the gun and yelled, Just sit down and keep quiet. If you do anything to make me mad, I'm going to... Yeah, so just watch it, seconded Elliot. Matthew stormed out, followed by Elliot, who slammed the door shut. Great, thought Matthew, going up to the bathroom and pressing his ear against the door. This was all they needed. He tossed his gun on a pile of clothes, then ran his right hand over his stubbly scalp. Christ! Standing there, he heard her moan, and then the next instant came the distinct passing of gas and liquid as Tina's bowels exploded. A moment of silence came next, followed by her very slight but pained crying. Staring at Elliot, Matthew waved him toward the door. Elliot edged right up to the door jamb. Tina, hon, you okay? There's blood. Matthew had been there, and he snapped, How much? A lot, she moaned, stifling a whimper. Great, muttered Matthew, starting to pace. Absolutely fucking great. This is all we fucking need. What if she passed out? What if the bleeding didn't stop? Tina, hon, began Elliot, his voice gentle. I think you'd better drink something. Will you do that for me? She coughed. Sure. When Elliot didn't move, Matthew barked. Well, just don't stand there, you fool. Get her some Gatorade or Coke or something. Elliot jumped, rushing across the room to a large red and white cooler. And I hurt, came her small voice. Matthew yelled, and get her a Percodan. Make that too? He moved right up to the closed door and said, It's okay, babe. Hearing her moan in pain, Matthew placed a hand flat on the door, wishing to send her comfort. Released, but forbidding himself to do anything more unless asked. He was sick of people asking him what they could do for him, tiptoeing around themselves horrified by what they were witnessing. This terrible disease that was attacking his skin, his lungs, his stomach. Fuck it. He was mortally ill. They all were, no doubt about that. But he hated being treated as if he were a fucking 2-year-old. He was just so sick of people. These grown, healthy adults whimpering around him, wanting to know if he wanted a glass of water, or a cold washcloth for his burning head, or a cookie. Matthew, want a cookie? Shit. Yet now that he heard poor Tina literally flushing her life down the toilet, all he wanted to do was hold her, rock her. Oh, God, he begged, banging his head against the wall. Let this be over soon, this torture of life. Yo, said Elliot, pushing a couple of pills, a baked treat, and a bottle of Gatorade at Matthew. Matthew turned, saw the offering, and started shaking his head. Where in the hell did you get a Twinkie? I brought a whole case of them. A psychic friend of mine says it kills HIV. But that'll be impossible for her to digest. Are you crazy? Elliot shrugged. Queer, everyone knows that. He pushed the stuff closer. Come on, give it to her. It'll be good for her blood sugar. Matthew took it all, then said, Tina, open up. Here's some stuff for you. The door cracked open and a deathly thin wrist, as skimpy as a twig, poked out. Matthew handled it all to her, wondering how in the hell she was even strong enough to hold it. "Thanks," she said, her hand withdrawing and the door shutting. Again she moaned as another burst of fluid shot out at her. After a few moments of quiet, Matthew said, "Tina, what do you think if I make the first video?" "No," came her immediate response. "But we've been over and over this, Matthew. It has to be me. I'm the straight one." They had discussed this at length, the order in which they were going to make the videos of each of them. With Johnny Clarendon, and the order was important, very much so. The country, even the world, would be watching, and Tina, Elliot, and Matthew wanted to make it perfectly clear why they had done this. Abducted a U.S. congressman. They had all agreed with Tina that the first image of them would be the most important, the one that would hit the hardest, and what could be a better, more shocking first glimpse at this band of AIDS terrorists than a straight woman who some viewers might still recognize as a one-time top model dying from this dreadful disease. "I'm kind of dizzy. Just give me a few more minutes," said Tina, her voice weak. "But I've got to do it. I've got to do it for Chris." Sure, babe. Whatever you say," replied Matthew. "You just rest a bit, and we'll start getting everything ready." His head pounding, Matthew turned to Elliot and ordered, "Get me the syringe." A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.